You're a pillar of Atlanta music from the past, the present, and the future, bro.
Appreciate it, homie. Appreciate
Man,
it.
I got a lot to ask you questions about, and I'm gonna make sure that I mention your most recent work with Michael Clark Jr. But
Okay.
like all good stories, I have to start at the beginning. So I want to open my question up by asking you, you've answered it in different ways, but who were some early musical influences for you growing up, and in particular, DJs that may have inspired you as a child?
Um, Believe it or not, my first influences were right in the home. My brother and my father. Well, I'm the youngest of six, so all of us was in the band. But my oldest brother in particular, who I wanted to mimic, played the trumpet. So the band was my first influence before we were exposed to hip hop, which was Run DMC. Even before I was, had the DJ bug. Those very early um, phases of hip hop came after, my love for music. So, but going into the DJ influences would have to be the early, of course, Jam Master Jay. It's funny how we talk about all these DJs now. I very rarely hear his name uh, when people mention him, and to be honest, I don't mention his name as much as I should because of my roots in the South. My bigger influences were like DJ Magic Mike, Mr. Mix of the Two Live Crew. But if you want to be, like from the beginning, Jam Master Jay was probably the one that commercially brought it to the doorstep. With the stuff that he was doing on those early Run DMC singles. So Sucker MC, the song Jam Master Jay, those were and they were DJ records. What's crazy, those were DJ records back then. And so that was when the role of the DJ was just as or even more important than the role of the MC. So it was always the MC and his DJ, or the DJ and the MC, as far as even the rap groups. And so, but Jam Master Jay, DJ Magic Mike, because I was born in Orlando, and DJ Magic Mike is from Orlando. Um, Mr. Mix with the Two Live Crew, of course. Um, but those were the early ons back then.
Mr. ColliPark, a lot can be said about the role of DJs. And, you've been a DJ, been a rapper, you've been a producer. Out of all three hats, which one do you say best describes you? Is it a DJ? Is it a producer? Is it an MC?
Probably, well, not even probably the DJ, because that dictates everything that I've ever done. It's the slab, it's the concrete slab at the bottom of the house. It's the foundation. You know what I mean? Because I'm always thinking DJ. When I started producing, I was sampling records that I was DJing. Um, so when you look at who you making records for, you learned that from being a DJ and playing for crowds. And so easily the DJ is the foundation of everything.
How did you come up with your DJ name, DJ Smurf?
Some older cats that I was DJing with cracked a joke on me, and it stuck. And so that's how I got DJ Smurf in the hood early on.
Was this when you moved to College Park at this time?
Yeah, well, I was born in Orlando, but I've been in well, it was Union City before College Park since I was like 5 years old. So I basically was raised here. So
When we talk about Atlanta, College Park, especially, in the early 80s, a lot of times people don't have like a proper picture of it. What are like some early memories that you have of growing up in College Park before that area became what it is now?
man, everything was small. We didn't have access to everything that these kids have access to now. We didn't have cars. Uh, we didn't have cell phones. Only thing we had was Marta. Marta always been there. You know what I mean? So my memories of early College Park was my neighborhood. right around where Banneker, which is, if you're not from here, that's where Luda went to, Tiny. So that area of College Park, Old National, Godby Road, it was just like it had more of a neighborhood feel to it. This was before you always had a street element, but it wasn't like what it is now. You that was just a pocket. When you think of the South Side now, that's at the forefront of what you think. But it wasn't like that when I was growing up. It was just a fun, urban neighborhood that wasn't so much exposed to the thing. It's like it's everywhere now, but back then it wasn't exposed to a certain aspect of city living or the city way of thinking, as it is now. But it was a fun place to be, man. You got so many creatives that came from this area. You know what I mean? So to me, it was just like a melting pot. The skating rink, skate for me, it was Skate Town. Um, the house parties and stuff like that. Um, that's what I remember, because you got to remember I was young. Um, what I was seeing in the 10th grade ain't what somebody in the 10th grade seeing now. So I wasn't all over the city. You know, I was just doing regular stuff. So it was just a lot more slow than what it is now. That's what I remember. This is before Freaknik. You know what I mean? Because now with that movie coming out, people make it seem like that was the beginning of everything. But there was life. And it was pretty normal.
Mr. ColliPark, I heard a lot of people basically say that, before Atlanta became known, like on the music scene, the talent shows were everything. Like, did you go to the talent shows? And
Of
if you
course.
went, what were some of your experiences with it? Do you remember seeing early talent before they became who they were now?
Um, I just remember the dance crews. That's all it was. I mean, because everybody wasn't rapping like, what would that even be now? I can, it's so long ago. I can't remember people getting up on stage and doing rap songs. I'm sure it was singing, but I remember it was predominantly dance crews. That was the music scene before the music scene got here. You know what I mean? It wasn't an industry thing. It was just the culture here. That word is like overused a lot now, but it truly was the culture of Atlanta was the dance scene as far as the music goes. And then as hip hop started evolving, you had those early artists that we didn't have. I didn't have connection to MC Shadi, or Raheem the Dream. I was just a kid DJing in my mother's basement. So the music scene wasn't common. It wasn't a possibility to us the way it is now. So it was just like the talent show and dance crews. That was it.
Mr. ColliPark, you went from a high school kid that played the trumpet, DJ, every now and then, to now you go to Alabama A&M. What
Yeah.
made you choose Alabama A&M, and how did your time there help you as a DJ and later in your career?
Um, I chose Alabama A&M because that's the only college that I applied to, because I wasn't going to college. Period. Um, and my brother went there. So my brother was in the band, and he was an alpha. Um, so that was, at the end of that summer that I graduated, it was just like, man, I ain't doing nothing. If I stay here, I ain't be doing nothing. So at the very last minute, that was the only school that I applied to. So that's where I wound up going. When I got there, I didn't even have a dorm room. So I slept on my brother's floor in his dorm for like 2 weeks. And then because because of him, I got a dorm I got a room in the senior dorm. So that was that. But my time there is it's almost like you asking me the role of the DJing versus the producer versus the MCing. My time at A&M, other than my time in Atlanta, was the most important part of my career, because you got to think, again, back then we weren't exposed to things, that we were hold. You're exposed by your phone now to things that you have no way of seeing, no way of knowing. If it wasn't through the music, like when gangster music uh, came out. We were exposed to that way of life through the music. So it was very limited resources of how you were exposed to things. So when I went to college, I was exposed to the country by way of the people that were coming from everywhere. Uh, People from the East Coast, people mainly from the East Coast, Midwest, and the rest of the Southeast even. I thought it was, I was exposed to one type of country, and that was Georgia country. That was Atlanta country. I didn't know the difference between that Alabama country, Mississippi country, you know what I mean, Louisiana country. So I was so close-minded by the way I viewed everything when I went to college, but college forced me to expand my perspective. Even when I started, that's really when I started DJing in public, was in college. Before I was a mixtape DJ. So when I got to college, the DJs were so horrible, it made me want to, no offense to anybody watching this, it made me start DJing in public, the parties at college. And that's the way I started knowing that I'm not working for myself. No matter how dope I am, I gotta please these people. Which I was from Atlanta, so I was Atlanta down. I didn't want to hear nothing if it wasn't Atlanta. But when you got people from everywhere else, you have to adapt. You know what I mean? So the influence of the band that you hear in my music and my productions, that's heavily influenced by Alabama A&M and the colleges, the parties that we threw, exposed me to marketing. So just my whole. I went to college for telecommunications because I had to pick something. But I went to learn life. I learned life at Alabama A&M, and it set me up for what I do now.
Did you all call Alabama A&M the Hill?
Yep, the hill is where we chill.
Man, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they both went to Alabama A&M, and so when you were talking about going there, my wife was like, "Make sure you tell them that they called it the Hill." I was like, "All right,
Yeah.
I asked them
Wait, wait,
about it."
wait. Do you know what year they went?
I want to say they went, babe, in the 80s. You know what year in the eight? It had to be 86, 87. It had to be 86,
Okay,
87.
I was from '91 to '94.
Okay, 91 to
Yeah,
94.
definitely the hill. Yeah, yeah,
Man, okay, okay. Um, So after you finish your time at Alabama A&M, I'm assuming you come back to Atlanta.
yep.
How did you run into King Edward J?
Well, Edward J was when I was in Atlanta before I went to college. So King Edward J was introduced to me through my MC at the time. So his father, he lived with his mother and his stepfather in College Park, but his real father, his biological father, lived on the east side. So Edward J was a deacon at the church uh, where his father lived, and so his name was Demo. Demo's Death was my MC's name, and so he told Edward J about me, and they set up a meeting, and we went out there, and I guess I auditioned. He loved it. Gave me a pair of turntables that was in the floor in the back, which is the only set of 1200s that I ever owned to this day. And I went home, and the rest is history, as they say. But when I came back, um, right before I left to go to college, I was DJing for MC Shy D. And so when I went to school, he had to go away and do a little time. And so he got out while I was in college. That's really why I came back, because I knew he was going to hit the ground running. So I came back, and that's how I got my first placement as a producer, and how I started writing as well. So I came back to DJ and go be his tour DJ, which I had started doing a little bit of that before I went to school. But when I came back to DJ and I started producing. I did probably about half of the album that he put out when he got home, called The Comeback, and it had a song called True to the Game that I produced. That was my first placement.
Before I ask you about True to the Game, I want to ask you about PMHI. I know
Yeah,
you kind of told us what it stands for, but could you give me a little more context on how that even came to be?
Pimp Mac Hustlers Incorporated. That was a crew my brother uh ran with, made up. And so when we went to college, I don't even know how we adapted that up there. But the crew that we hung out with up in school, it was just some partners. And I would put their names in my little songs, and it just sounded real cool. I always thought it sounded cool when people would shout out people in their crew and their records, just like reference, like just I can't, I got to
Like Nas shouting out Ill Will or something like that.
right. So I always thought that sounded cool when people would just added something to your existence. So when I made my first DJ Smurf project, I said I'm gonna say DJ Smurf and PMHI, because it just added more to me, and it was kind of like I was following suit with like DJ Magic Mike and the Royal Posse. So it was people were doing that before, but the crew came just from partners of mine. My brother, they made that shit up, and we just carried it on.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I was looking for some context on that.
Yeah, nobody ever
Mr.
asked me that.
I got one shit thing. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. ColliPark, you've answered it before. Um, and I did an interview with Big Oomp and them, and they mentioned like the friendly competition y'all had. Like, how did that start? And when you look at where your career is gone and their career is gone, how do you feel about what you guys have done for Atlanta mixtapes?
First of all, let me start out by saying DJ Jelly is the salt of the earth. That's my guy. Like for real, he's one of the best human beings I know. Um, so they got on the scene in Atlanta when I was away at college. So when I was away at college, I didn't know what was going on here in Atlanta. I was terrorizing Alabama and them at the time. If you were up in Huntsville when I was there, that was the best party. I said party period ever up there. And anybody who was up there, or even that time or around that time, they would tell you DJ Smurf had it on lock. So I could care less what was going on in Atlanta at the time. But when Jelly and them got on the scene, some kind of way they started going back and forth with the J team, which is LJ, my crew. Uh, Lady DJ, who was the MC on most of my mixtapes, uh, she would send me music and stuff. Because I was broke when I was in college when I first went. So she sent me records and kept me up on all the music or whatever. She sent me little care packages. I would do mixtapes and send them back for her to talk over and sell here. And so she said, "Is this?" She put me up on what was going on with Jelly and them. So me out of just, I was cocky. I had blind loyalty. I said, "Don't worry about it. I got it." So I started making mixtapes, dissing them. Didn't even know who they were. Never met him. None of them. Jelly, Assault, none of them. I couldn't pick them out of the lineup. But I didn't know the science of. They really took the marketing aspect of the mixtape when they started putting them the locations in the flea markets and all that stuff all over the city, and they transitioned from the cassette to the CD. And so Edward J was just old school. We had got comfortable, and so they slid in on a whole takeover plan. We were just on some mixtape stuff still. And when they put out the I forget the name of the mixtape, but they gave out posters with it was a replica of the Ice Cube death certificate cover, but it had DJ Smurf on the toe tag. And they would give that out with the mixtape. When I heard about that, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is something else." And so, but it was for me, it was serious. But I was battling on behalf of my crew, so I didn't even know them. I met Jelly later, and he was nothing like what I thought, you know. And just through the years, because I wasn't even making mixtapes when I came back. I was into to the record business when I came back. And so we did a lot of work with them. And to see where it is now, man, I would like to think that we made each other better. That's the way I look at it.
I would agree, to be honest, man. And without the work that both of your prospective camps did, Atlanta wouldn't be what it is. So
Right,
it,
right.
it
I would like to say we were the inspiration for their slab, for their groundwork, their ground level of their work, because the J team was everything at the time that they came, but they saw where we were slacking, and they came on in to do what they were supposed to do.
I appreciate that, Mr. ColliPark. You mentioned the work you did with MC Shy D, and I looked up some work that you had did with, So So Def and the Bass All Stars, and there was a record you did with Kizzy Rock. And I looked at an interview, you said that it was a especially special placement. What made that placement so special for you in particular?
For the So Def.
Hmm.
Well, that's kind of a tricky situation because again, I had a hefty ego as DJ Smurf. I had a pretty sizable ego. Probably can't tell now, but back then, uh, you know, I I fancied myself, and we fancied ourselves as the street side of. And it sounds stupid even saying it now. The street side of the booty shake. The you know what I mean? Like we were the real. And so when Jermaine and them came with that So Def, I didn't want to be a part of it because I felt like they were coming in to commercialize what we were fighting for. Um, Again, it sounds stupid, even saying it now, but at the last minute, I agreed to do a skit, so I wouldn't do a song. Um, Lil Jon was my guy at the time. He wasn't the Lil Jon that made records at the time. He was the Lil Jon with the bullhorn that worked with Jermaine. I didn't even know Lil Jon as a DJ back then because my time away is when they came and made their noise. Um, it's special because it's the first plaque that I got. It's the first plaque that I got, and I hung it up in my mom's house because I never in a million years thought that I would do anything uh that would garner one of those plaques, because that was like back in the day, having a plaque or seeing a plaque, that was unreal. So when I got it, so it was bittersweet. It taught me a valuable lesson of the ego. My ego, all I got, I want to say they gave us like $5,000 to do the skit, and that was it. So that record went on to sell gold. And had I put a song on that album, so it was kind of an empty, to be a part of it, that was big, but it was the lesson that I learned. So if you go look at the second volume, the third volume, I had like 2 or 3 songs on each one, but none of them were as big as that first one though. So I missed it, but that's what makes that whole experience. I learned from that.
Thank you for sharing that because you're right. When I looked at 2 and 3, I'm like, oh yeah, you all over it. So, but
Yeah, all over it.
man,
And to be honest, it taught me is even how I was making records and structured records. My street stuff wasn't translating like the commercial stuff. So that whole period of the Shorty Swing My Way, the My Boo, of even when the Quad City DJs, uh, that commercial run of booty shake music, it taught me. It taught me like, man, you that street stuff, that underground strip club stuff, it's cool, but you can't get the way you trying to go by being so street and hood and raunchy and all that. So that whole period of time, I learned that lesson. So by the time I got in the industry with my stuff, with my label, that was the experience that I had.
can you tell me a little bit about the crowd pleasers? And I bet you won't get crunk.
There was a dance crew. That was a dance crew, and they thought I was one of the best MCs on Booty Shake. Not for real. It was Keto, and then it was me. They really thought, because I was a fan of hip hop, so when I wrote my raps, it was patterned off of real hip hop rap. That's why if you know anything about DJ Smurf records, I don't rap like the rest of them did. I'm on there spit. You know what I mean? I got flows, I got patterns, but it's not because I thought I was a real rapper. It was because I patterned myself after real MCs. And so the Crowd Thieves was a dance crew, and they just was always they always told me I was cold with it. You know what I mean? So when they made their records, they wanted me to get on their stuff. So, we always been family like that. So I came in and it's so funny. I forgot I hadn't even put a verse on I Bet You Won't Get Crunk. Because I'm at the end. Nobody ever plays it. The record probably 5 minutes long. Nobody ever plays it to the last verse. So when I say, oh man, I'm a part of this history too. But yeah. So that was that. That was the connection. I was a DJ and they were a dance crew.
It's ironic you mentioned that because I went back really and just listened to a lot of your music, and that's what struck me. Like people get caught up in the bass sound and how it's the sound over the lyrics, but you really were rapping on all those songs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it didn't take away from the beat. It didn't take away from what was, what people were hearing though.
Right. Right. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Um, so before the world knew Yin Yang, D Rock was a part of a group that I was learning about, the Too Tight Click.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with D Rock? How did you meet him, and how did your relationship lead to the Yin Yang twins coming together?
Well, D Rock was just a kid that I used to see around with Diamond, who had the Bankhead Bounce record. So it was Diamond and D Rock. I didn't know the dynamic of all that at the time. But D Rock was a 15-year-old kid that wasn't even old enough to get into the club. He never spoke. When we be out, he never spoke. Because Diamond was so animated and he was from Florida. So, he had all that going on. But I didn't know that it was the Bankhead Bounce was actually Diamond's song, but D Rock was the one rapping on it. Diamond was in the background doing all that Luke sound and stuff, but D Rock did the verses. So Diamond had the deal on Elektra Records. D Rock wound up getting a deal on Ichiban, which was the independent label here, which was in my mind a smaller situation because it's independent. So D Rock was that was D Rock and the Too Tight Click. That's how me and D Rock started working together. We both had record deals at Ichiban, so we did a swap out, and that's how I got him to get on the album, which eventually became the first song that the Yin Yang Twins. Because him and Kane was writing with D Rock, but they weren't a group. So when he did my swap out, he put Kane on there with him, and when I heard it, it was what y'all hear now.
Man, I went back and listened to that first Yin Yang because when I heard Yin Yang, of course I heard Whistle While You Twerk, but I went back listening to Thug Walking and some of the other
Yeah,
cuts on there, and I was just like, bro, this whole album is really hard on the low.
yeah,
Like not even
yeah,
on the low, but I was like 10 when it came out.
yeah.
What made you think that those two would be a good pairing, and what memories do you have of that first project, Thug Walking, that they put out?
Um, I tell people when they running up on me, especially when parents come to me talking about my kids rap, blah 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 blah. I never try to discourage, but everything that I've signed, I feel like I didn't have a choice because when I heard it, it made me say, "That's it." You don't have to ask. You don't have to. It gives you an energy. It gives you. It's just you when you know, you know. And I've had it with everything that I've pursued. When I heard Kane and D Rock together on, it was a record called One on One that was on my Dead Crunk album. And when I heard them on that record going back and forth, I got chill bumps. I tell people I got chill bumps on my arm when we was in the studio, and I heard them going back and forth because I had never heard nothing like that before. And it wasn't even the booty shake rap at the time. It wasn't the twerk rap at the time. It was just the way they played off each other like some real MC, like it was some real MC hip hop. You know what I mean? And so that's what made me, when I heard them, I was like, I told them even before I signed them, I said, I don't know what y'all doing. I said, but this right here, y'all need to make this a group. And if you look at the poster for my album Dead Crunk, it says introducing the Yin Yang Twins on the poster. So from there, I got them on the Rhythm and Quad album, which was something DJ Cersei, who was with John and that whole clique. That was the album that had Shawty Swing My Way. So they was telling us that this type of record that they were working on. I was like, I got the perfect group for y'all. And so I had them on the three-way rapping verses to DJ Cersei and John. I think John was on the phone. But that was the second song that they did as the group. And then from there, when we decided to make it a thing, because of my background and D-Rock's background, I chose to go the route of at that time it was just the Hot Boys was the thing at the time and Juvenile was the thing at the time. So that was the tempo. So I call it booty shake that slowed down. Because the energy of Whistle While You Twerk is different than anything else. That energy didn't exist until that record. But the tempo of Back That Ass Up and I Need a Hot Girl, that was the tempo of the club at the time. So that's why Whistle While You Twerk is that tempo, and that's the vibe we chose to run with. That became the twerk sound.
You answered my second question, which I was going to ask. It was Whistle While You Twerk, the beginning of twerk music. Was at the beginning of the twerk genre.
And I have to be careful how I speak on that because somebody from Louisiana is gonna see this, and then they're gonna lose their mind or whatever. But it's undisputed. You can't find me a record that existed before Whistle While You Twerk. And the thing that makes it different is the subject matter. Is first of all, sonically, it was literally a booty shake beat that I slowed down. So Whistle While You Twerk was the tempo of Whoop There It Is when I first did it. But I slowed it down. And that's why the energy and even the sounds that I use, those were booty shake music sounds. And I just slowed it down. And that was, and the strip club subject matter. It was strip club subject matter. Specifically strip club, not just booty shaking, not twerking. You know, it was strip club stuff, and that's what made the whole twerk subgenre.
I like the way you broke that down because when you listen to Whistle While You Twerk, it literally is talking about strip club. Salt Shakers about the strip club, but the New Orleans bounce is like party dance. This is more so. This is yeah.
I think we solidified it with Ay Ay Ay. I think Ay 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 when we really dug because it was even harder than Whistle While You Twerk sonically. The beat was just ferocious, and the subject matter stayed strip club. So that was the and then by when they did Get Low with Lil Jon, that was just a you know that's twerk music.
Mr. ColliPark, you know when you think about the musical evolution of Atlanta bass, twerk, and then crunk, in what ways are they alike, and in what ways are they different?
It's all club driven. So you said Atlanta based twerk and crunk.
Yes, sir.
I mean it's all derivatives of club music. So they're all alike. The only thing makes them different is tempo. Because Yin Yang blurred the line between crunk and twerk. That's what made Yin Yang is just as much as a part of crunk as Lil Jon is. Sonically. John coined it and marketed it to the world. But Yin Yang was crunk. They brought that element that to it sonically, and they lived like that. Like it wasn't a put on. It wasn't an act. It was a way of life for them, like for real. And so when they got, it's just like my album called Dead Crunk. You know, I wasn't making sonically. The music wasn't what John did, but it was just an energy that existed. And so when they got on Get Low, it kind of blurred the lines. It actually was a perfect marriage of twerk music and crunk music. And that's why I think that song there'll never be a song to compete with that record right there, ever. Where it sits in the culture, because that record right there, you just felt that record through the city. When that record was the number one record, I think it was a time to be had in that time frame right there. Through the music though, the music dictated the energy that was going on out here, just like it's dictating what it's doing now, but it's on a much darker, more ratchet, where we are in culture right now, in the culture in society right now. The music dictates that. Well, that time in life dictated a good time to be had.
You guys went from Whistle While You Twerk, Ay Ay Ay, Get Low, Stand Up and Get Crunk. When I listen to Stand Up and Get Crunk, I mean, of course, now I think about your band influence, but where was the group at that point in time? And was there a conversation about evolving from a certain
So
sound?
so we always kept a song for the fellas, and people don't really realize how we. I don't even know if it was strategic at the time. Um, we're known primarily for those twerk records, but we always kept a song in the mix that the fellas could get involved. And if you take By Myself out of their catalog, that's what really rallied everybody behind us. You know what I mean? Because we had the girls. But when we did that By Myself, and it was so aggressive and it was so real, it was so true to how people thought. And then you go from that to What's Happening with Trick Daddy.
And Bo Hagen too, right?
Well, no, Bohagan wasn't on that. What's Happening was just Trick Daddy.
Oh, okay.
Boom, it's on. But
Oh
that
yeah,
that,
yeah, okay, yeah.
that embodied from sonically the band. It embodied HBCU feel even before Stand Up and Get Crunk. It kept that testosterone element with the fellas. So by the time we got to Stand Up and Get Crunk, they didn't even want to do that record. My brother. So you gotta look at it like this: me as the producer and the CEO, I'm like the third member of the group that don't be in the pictures, right? So my brother being in the band, um, I can't remember if I went to him or he came to me just wanted to do something that involved that vibe, that fanfare vibe to it. And so when we did the beat before any lyrics was done, and so the, when the beat was done, it was just so true to what we were trying to create. It was just so dope, and it didn't sound like nothing we had done up until that point. So as a producer, I used to just make beats, and the only difference is I wouldn't give my beats to people outside of my crew. So I wasn't producing for Bubba Sparks or Jeezy and all that at the time. So when we gave the beat, when we went to the studio, I don't know if we gave the beat to them before we went to the studio or they came to the studio first, but they wasn't messing with it. It was Homeboy, who's the feature on that record. He laid his verse first and he snapped. People all over the world jump. Everybody jump. Like when he laid that, I think that showed them like, okay. And then that's when they went in. And I didn't know what they were gonna do. It was just so simplistic, but so perfect for what the assignment was. And when I heard it, stand up and get, even the verses how they came. They brought Kane, even his verse, the way he flowed, that was some hip hop. We pop in everything you drop in from the yin yang to it. Like it was just a perfect. I don't know, man. It was just God was in the room, man. God was in the room. I can't say it was. It was not planned. It was just a combination of pros at work. That's what it was.
100, 100. I get it. You've spoken on it, but you guys your production catalog, you went from doing records like that to doing records that people didn't even imagine, like Trap Star for Jeezy. How
Right.
did you meet Jeezy, and how did that song come to be?
Tex James, who was signed to my label with a group called the Cadillac Boys, it was down. He's from Macon, so he made that hookup with Jeezy. I knew Jeezy. I didn't know I knew Jeezy. He knew me. I used to do parties down in Middle Georgia somewhere for his cousin or something, and that he used to be at or whatever. Uh, if I'm remembering, in some kind of way, he knew it was the Edward J. DJ Smurf connection for Jeezy, and so Tex James knew him and told me he wanted to hook up. I just knew him through that mixtape he had, Trap or Die. And I was like, whoa, what do you want with me? Because I'm doing all this other kind of stuff. So I gave him a beat CD, and that Trap Star beat was on it. But there was another beat that I did that was real rock guitar heavy that I thought he was going. I really just knew he was gonna pick this beat because it was hard. And he wound up actually recording that record and not doing nothing with it. Um, but he picked that traps. I didn't know he was a big horn guy at the time because I didn't know much about him. Um, but that's what it was. And I'll never forget. I wasn't in the studio when he laid the vocals, but when it came time to mix the record, I always sat in through my mixes. And I just remember we were sitting there at the board, and he had them damn horns going through the whole song. And I was like, "Yo, man, these horns supposed to come out during the verses." He was like, "Nah, man, nah, nah." These, I was like, "Yo, I wasn't used to that because it wasn't no dynamic to the song. It was just like it kept going. Um, and I could tell he didn't say it, but I could tell if if I took them horns out that verse, I think he would have scrapped the record. That's how I felt. Like he was that passionate about keeping them horns in. So I was like, we'll leave the horns in, and it became his calling, his calling card, like Trap Star.
Man, it's funny that you mentioned, Tex James, because I was at Fort Valley when he really was having his way with Smart Girl, and him and Stewie Rock were killing the
Yeah.
radio. Um, what made you decide to, kind of continue to work with artists in Middle Georgia, like who you work with now, Michael Clark Jr.? Like, what did you see down that way that kind of inspired you?
Man, that's how we stay true to who we are. Cause now, real talk, Atlanta has been infiltrated and it's commercialized now. Everybody got a hold to it now. We like the girl that everybody done had. At first, nobody could get them, but after that first dude got them, she turned out now. You know what I mean? So when you go to where the Hollywood aspect of stuff don't exist, that's when you're gonna go back and find the real essence. And so now, I've cussed a couple of times. I'm just gonna say, I just feel like this city been hoarded out. The culture has been hoarded out. The sound has been hoarded out. Um, there's nothing interesting musically for me. Um, but I still love music. So when I came across Mike Clark, I wasn't even, that's my new artist. And it's not even rap. That's what I'm trying to tell you. When I heard the song, I was like, oh man. I sent it to my man who do blues. I was like, yo, I don't do this kind of music, but is this what I think I'm hearing? And he was like, yeah, you got one. I ran and I signed him, and thank God he had a team with him already, so I don't have to know everything about it. I can just kind of do what Jimmy Iovine and L.A. Reid do in this situation, and so I think he just brings a part of the culture to the forefront that ain't been hoarded out yet, which is the type of the Southern soul sound and the music that's been, people they love this music, where it exists. It's just not commercialized, and so I I used to say I pride myself. Uh, I do the music that when I first put it out, it make people frown. It make people have a stank face because they can't stand it. What the hell is this? That's the first thing come out their mouth. It happened with Yin Yang. It happened with Soldier Boy. So whenever I'm on my job, that means somebody ain't liking it. If you ain't from down here, you ain't gonna understand it and you ain't gonna like it. I feel like I got that again. But the payoff of it is so much more. It moves the needle. There's a shift in the industry when it's done right. And I feel like we can do that with Mike Clark. He's a real talent.
Mr. ColliPark, you mentioned it before, but can you talk to people and kind of explain to them a little bit more what Southern Soul is? Like I worked in Middle Georgia. That's all the people, especially the older generation, that's really what they listen to. They will be at work playing Southern Soul, but certain people may not be familiar with it. So can you kind of just brief them a little bit on it?
It's like a fusion to me between blues and R&B. Um, it has an older, sonically it's older sounding. Um, but it's just party, family reunion, picnic. It's just that kind of music. It's that kind of vibe. I think the only thing that's missing in it is youth, and I think that's what Mike Clark brings to it. But it's ain't much to it sonically because the people who are doing it ain't the most talented people in the world. But I think culturally it goes back to a stripped down, raw version of who we are. You know what I mean? Uh, it's almost like what country is to the other side. That side is stripped down and is more real to who they are as a culture than pop music. So Southern Soul is that for us. It just ain't been exposed yet in the big city.
You right. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Auntie Outside and Got It Going On, those two, man, those are hits. And when the world catches on, she just
Right.
out of there. So
Speaking on those two records, I think Auntie Outside, which I signed him off that record, which is a great record, sonically, where I think he can go. Um, sonically is just a little too Southern Soul sonically to take to the masses. So when they did Got It Going On, shouts out to Mr. Hanky, he produced the record, and we put Truck on. I said sonically, it keeps that essence, but at the same time, it has more of appeal that I think I can take that further than Auntie. And then God willing, we pop Got It Going On, and we're gonna come back to Auntie because I think Auntie is a huge record. But I think I might have to circle back to Auntie.
I can see that. And just the way y'all are playing it, like you mentioned Mr. Hanky, and I know he's on it, and I spoke with him before. I do want to ask you, how did the package store come to be?
They were together. Shout out to John Boy, Mr. Hanky, Swole, and Tom Slick. It was just guys that we had around. And we were so hot at the time, coming off Hurricane and Soldier. We were going into Soldier and Hurricane. That's why I got this studio that I'm in right now. Because back then I was working at the house. I love working at the house at the studio. So I needed a spot for to record. First it was Hurricane's album, and then it was Soldier Boy's album. But it was just John Boy and Hanky went to Southern together, and then Swole was Tex James' cousin, and Tom Slick was the guy working at the airport that we would run into. So it was just a collection of talent that we just had that made the full package.
Thank you for mentioning Hurricane and Soldier because that leads into my next question. I saw a plaque on your page where, it showed him with 1 billion streams. And, when Soldier Boy came to be, that was my last year of high school. Needless to say, he changed rap in a way it'll never be changed, probably ever. What do you take the most pride in when you look at his career?
That was a part of it. Like, again, it goes back to me saying that even being a part of the industry wasn't a reality for us back when I started. See, now these kids know it's possible. We didn't know it was possible. back when I started. So when I see that, I go back to my beginning. Like, wow, I was a part of bringing that change and that impact to this industry. And it makes me want to keep the needle moving, man. It makes me want to go harder for Mike Clark. You know what I mean? Because to me, that's kind of like my purpose. It gives me purpose in what I'm doing, not just out here doing it. I find joy in doing it, but my joy comes from contributing to the culture of it, and even changing somebody's life. Who like take Mike? He's from Macon. You know, he was coming out of high school to be able to give a kid an opportunity to do what he loves doing in a way that he didn't necessarily think it was possible. That man, that's everything to me, man. It ain't the fact that I know the money that can be made off of it. When you do it right, everybody make money. But that ain't the motivation behind it all. It's the changing of people's lives. It's the change, the contribution to the culture.
You know, when we talk about your legacy, of course, people mention Big Draco, Soldier, but man, I was in college when VIC was doing his thing as well, and you know, Get Silly, and then now as a 30 plus year old man listening to Wobble and stuff when they play at their pep rallies, like I think about the legacy. How did you meet VIC? And you know, what you know, you said you felt something whenever you listened to like certain records. What did you feel when you made Wobble?
I BIC didn't hit me like that. My brother signed BIC. So people don't know this because I executive produced his album. That was my brother's label, Young Mogul, and I produced Get Silly and I produced Wobble, and kind of oversaw the project alongside with my brother. But I didn't I didn't necessarily get it, to be honest with you. VIC was a barber at the barber shop on Old National where I used to get my hair cut when I had hair. So he was doing gospel rap. You know what I mean? So he come out to the parking lot, you know, telling me, oh man, he was soft spoken and just he just didn't have anything that said I need to be doing music professionally. But my brother saw it, and he signed him up, and he had a record called Riding Batman, and that was right when we had signed Hurricane, so we wound up putting Hurricane on that record, and then he got a deal, he got a single deal off of that Riding Batman record. It was like, well, we want 2 songs, so that's when I went in and did Get Silly. So Get Silly wound up being his single, and just to go with the flow of everything that was going on at the time, all the momentum we had with Soldier Boy, we presented the song like Soldier Boy produced it, but actually I produced it. Um, so that was that. And after we turned in them 2 songs, Get Silly went silly, and they gave him an album deal. And so it's like, okay, we got an album. I wasn't really hands on in the way that I was hands on with Soldier. Um, so I would come in and just do my song. So actually, Wobble came. It was just a drum track that was sitting on my hard drive that my brother found. Um, and he found that drum track, and they started the record. I wasn't even in the studio at the time, and so that record was Frank wasn't on it. Like that record was really just like a bunch of people's ideas being thrown into a pot. And then at the end, I did like this, and the rest is history.
It truly is, man. It truly is. It's just one of the many hits that's a part of your catalog. And it's funny because I'm looking at some of your production credits that I've written down, and I'm looking at the versatility from, you know, of course, Hit the Floor, Miss New Booty, Play, the Whisper song. Like I'm looking at all those. And my question is, you know, did your style of production change over the years, or did you make a change or decision to make certain types of records to show that you were versatile?
I ain't gonna lie. The biggest change for me as a producer was out of frustration of not being recognized in that whole crunk thing. Because it was like what we had started doing, they just lumped it all in after Get Low. Like that whole tempo, because John was predominantly doing those I don't give a that tempo. Be a
Heavy
be
synth.
he was known for that tempo. But after Get Low, that was our tempo. So if you know how John put his records together, he's like a DJ. He go make records with whoever hot at the time, and he'll make a song that addresses that crowd. So Get Low was the yin yang crowd because we had that twerk. So after that, it's like we had all got sucked up in this whole crunk thing and started losing our identity in that. And it was frustrating from a creative perspective because we had built that. And so the Whisper song, that's what really changed everything and gave the identity to the ColliPark brand. It wasn't the whistle while you twerk. It's like people had to circle back once they found out the same person did that. But sonically, there was nothing that sounded like the Whisper song. And then when I came back with Play and Miss New Booty, all of that, Shake with Pitbull, all of that sonically had the same, feel to it. And so that's, I could say, during that time when we stripped everything down, that's when I made a conscious decision to kind of take all that energy out of it and just start making sexy club records.
Man, and to this day, I like when I'm looking at your trajectory from Yin Yang, Pitbull, Play, Whisper Song, and then you get a record with Jamie Foxx, and it's actually one of my favorite songs on that cut, The Warm Bed.
It should
How
have been
did you said what?
it should have been the second single.
Bro, to open the album up with that, I was like, dang, bro, that needed a video, that needed everything.
Yeah, that was
How,
frustrating that it wasn't a single because I thought that was one of the ones. Sean Garrett wrote that record, by the way. Who wrote Yeah and Goodies and Sean is a beast.
Garrett the Pen, man.
That was during my run over there at J. Larry was over there. Who runs the new label that Sexy Red in the morning over there. Larry Jackson was over there. They was they was fans of what I was doing at the time, so they brought me over there, and I did that. I did a couple of remixes for DJ Play a Love Song, which was the second single that knocked Warm Bed out the way. But I won't say Jamie really wanted that to be his second single, but they picked that DJ Play a Love Song. But that's how that I never was in the studio with Jamie though. That was kind of me and Sean going back and forth, and he went in and cut that with him.
Because of you and your interviews, I've learned about Mike Fresh and the Devastator, just the role they played in making Miami bass / Atlanta bass what it is. Um, when you think about Atlanta music in general, whether it's the bass, whether it's crunk or twerk, like what makes it different than any other like brand of Southern music that it may have like originated from?
Because that's what anything, man. It's like Memphis music, Texas. It all comes from how people live and the culture and what influences. When you see them T-shirts, Atlanta influences everything. Your culture influences everything from your food to your music to everything. So that's what makes Atlanta the same way. That's what makes Memphis. What made New York New York. It's how we live. It's the lifestyle. You know what I mean? The strip club is a real thing. So we make our music, the talent shows, those records that the whole So Def era, the whole DJ Smurf, Shy D. Before we started making records, we was making mixtapes, dance show tapes off Planet Rock, Pretty Tony, Debbie Dale. Like those are the records that we would dance to, or they would dance to. I couldn't dance, but you see what I'm saying? it's all a continuation. So that's what made it.
When people speak about your legacy, what ColliPark music represents, what you represent, what do you want them to say?
Uh, he was deceivingly impactful. He was he was low key one of the most influential people to ever do it. Um, and I'm not done yet. I just look at just between the two acts that I consider, my legacy acts, Yin Yang Twins and Soldier. When you look at the impact of the Yin Yang Twins to the to music, pop music, um, rap music, just this city, our catalog aged better than some of your favorite rappers that you still think are bigger than Yin Yang. They're not. They're not. They may have sold more records, but to the culture of this country, not even just rap. You got Dion in Colorado, Stand Up and Get Crunk. You got people all over the world with Get Low. I take credit for Get Low because I had a record called To the Walls when I was in college. I don't speak on it all the time. Uh, when you think of the whole twerk impact on this generation, um, I mean, that's before we get to Soldier, and I don't have to speak on how he just changed the trajectory of the marketing of music, music, not just rap music. Um, so it's all up here now. But if you go all the way to the origin of it, here I am. It's got ColliPark written on the product. So that's special. And then when you even get to like when you oversee sitting at the pool bar and the wobble come on, or if I'm at a pep rally or something and walk around the club, come on. You know what I mean? It just, or even when I hear Pitbull, I know I was a part of his journey. I know I gave him a couple of opportunities early on in his career that made a difference for him. You know what I mean? And he did some things for me that made a difference. So it's just little things like that. But I tell you what, I'm looking at Mike Clark as I'm I'm really excited about Mike Clark because I think in a way because everything is just so out of proportion right now to be able to break something like that right now this day and age, it would be just as big to me personally as breaking a Soldier Boy.
And honestly, man, I'd have to agree with you because, when you were just talking, just going through it really quickly, my older brother was in the military. He was just talking about how big Yin Yang was in Korea. And I just would never believe it. But everybody that you've had a role in is touched different generations. It's touched the 90s, it's touched the 2000s, it's touching currently. And when Mike blows, that's going to open up a new generation of kids younger than him that are going to make that same music, and it's going to be acceptable for
Right,
people under 50 to make that music.
right, right.
So, so I see it.
Appreciate it.
Nah, man, and like I was telling you before, Mr. ColliPark, I appreciate it. I always hear when they talk about Atlanta, they like everything stems from certain trees, and your name is always on one of those trees. And when you say Ichiban, I always say Ichiban, Harvest Records, like those trees made Atlanta. So for you to be one of those trees, but still to be planting and still to be relevant in this time, man, it's truly an honor for real, for real.
Thank you. Thank you.
So is there anybody you want to send shouts out to at this point?
Man, I just want everybody to just go. If you don't know who Mike Clark Jr. is, just go look him up. the music might sound a little different at first, but trust me, you listen to it a couple of times, it'll make you feel right at home and make you
It
feel,
grow on you.
and it make you want to find you a woman.
Hey, them aunties was really outside, man. For real, for real.
Yes, sir.